Jedi Survivor is changing the game when it comes to lightsaber combat, but there's one thing that EA has been suspiciously quiet about when it comes to Survivor.
These are mags.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going over the combat system in Jedi Survivor, and after getting to play it for a few hours myself, I have some immediate tips that you need to know going into the release. We're also going to talk about why EA is keeping the blaster stance very close to the chest. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, and if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and getting notified. Do it. So we just got the final gameplay trailer for Jedi Survivor before it launches. It still looks incredible. I can't wait to get my hands on this game for real. But one thing that I was really looking forward to seeing in this trailer that wasn't in there was gameplay of the blaster stance. I was one of the lucky few individuals who got to go to LA to play Jedi Survivor early, and while I was there, I didn't get to play the blaster stance, but I did get to watch a gameplay demonstration of it, and it was by far my favorite part about the demo. I wish I could show you guys gameplay about it. EA has been very quiet when it comes to the blaster stance, and we'll talk about why shortly. Before that though, there's a few things that you Survivor players will need to know before you get the game. These are some of the most fundamental and basic combat tips, and if you played Jedi Fallen Order, you should actually be fairly experienced at a few of them already. Just like in JFO, if Cal gets knocked down, he can quickly recover from the knock by pressing the dodge button after he hits the ground. It's super basic, but it's kind of overlooked because if you don't get out of the way, you can keep getting hit while you're knocked down. So always keep a finger near the dodge button just in case you need to move. Cal will do a quick roll and get to his feet when you successfully pull this off. We also have to talk about the unblockable attacks. You'll see these a lot during your playthrough. The unblockables are really easy to notice because your enemy will turn bright red as they're getting ready to use the move. It's when you see your enemy turn red that you want to plan to dodge that attack. A well-timed dodge will get Cal away safely and leave the target open for a follow-up, but if you don't get out of the way, you will get hit and Cal will take massive damage. If you do end up getting hit by one of these, use that first tip I mentioned to recover as quick as you can and get to safety. Another really good tip from Fallen Order is to dodge the area of effect attacks. In the first game, there were certain enemies that had moves that made a shockwave on the ground that damaged Cal if it touched him. This makes a comeback here, and the best way to avoid it is just to jump over that shockwave. Fortunately, for us Survivor players, Cal starts the game with the double jump, which makes getting away from these AoE attacks a lot easier than in Fallen Order, where we didn't get the double jump until late in the game. So far, it's all been pretty close to the first game, but a major difference between Survivor and Fallen Order that I noticed was the fact that you can use the environment in combat a lot more this time around. There were a few instances of this in Fallen Order, like pulling a stormtrooper and using him to hit another, but in Survivor, you can use the Force to pick up rocks or other objects in the field and launch them at your targets to do pretty decent damage without putting yourself in harm's way. There's a lot more of that this time around, so always keep an eye out for objects turning blue, which lets you know that you can use the Force on them. Let's actually focus on the Force real quick because it's a huge part of the combat system. Just like in the last game, Cal has an arsenal of Force powers that he can use in combat. He still has the classic Force Push, Force Pull, and his signature ability, Force Slow, which now acts as kind of an ultimate move, where you need to charge up a meter by doing damage to enemies. Once that meter is full, Cal unleashes a huge wave of Force energy around him that slows all targets in that radius. Cal had these three abilities in Fallen Order, but he's picked up a new trick over these last few years. Force Confusion, which was one of my favorite moves when I got to play the demo. This is basically a mind trick.
You don't need to see his identification.
We don't need to see his identification.
Cal uses this on an enemy who then turns around and attacks their own buddies for him. It's a temporary trick, the confusion doesn't last forever, and if there are no other targets for the confused enemy to attack, it will just come attack Cal no matter what, so it's a bit circumstantial. But if you're overwhelmed by a large group, this is a really handy move, and I found myself using it more than once during my playtime. In the skill tree, these powers are divided by a couple of categories. Telekinesis is your push and pull skill tree, while Slow and Confusion have their own trees. By unlocking skill points, you can make each of your Force powers stronger and more effective, like being able to push a larger group of baddies or having your Confusion effect last longer. Obviously, in order to use these Force powers, you need to have enough Force energy. It's that little blue meter down by the health bar. Just like in JFO, if this is empty or if you don't have enough, you won't be able to use your Force powers. Attacking and defeating enemies can recharge your Force meter, so a good combination of Force powers and lightsaber attacks will make your Force abilities always available. Speaking of lightsaber attacks, let's move on to the lightsaber combat because this is where Cal really shines in this game. He may have only picked up one additional force power, but he's clearly been practicing with his blades. Cal has 3 new lightsaber stances that he can fight with, in addition to the classic single blade and double bladed staff that he had from the first game. Dual wielding, cross guard, and as mentioned at the beginning of the video, blaster stance are the 3 new ways that Cal can fight in Survivor. These 5 stances all have their own strengths and weaknesses. The single blade stance is your balanced one, with stats equal across the board. The double bladed staff is focused on defense and speed, but sacrifices power and range. Dual wielding significantly increases speed and raises your power, but also significantly reduces both range and defense. The crossguard stance, while we don't have stats for it, clearly excels in power and range, with huge, heavy attacks that do devastating damage, but it also appears to significantly slow Cal down and probably hurts the defense a little bit. And finally, blaster stance, as I mentioned, is being kept very hush-hush. Clearly though, it excels in ranged attacks, and while I can't show you gameplay, I can tell you a bit about it. So the blaster is pretty versatile. I thought it was going to be one note, but it actually has different kinds of shots. Just like in the movies, you can set it to either stun or lethal, and depending on how you use it, you can do some really cool things when it comes to combos. My favorite combo that I saw from the demo was a combination of a force move that lifted a large group of stormtroopers into the air. Cal slows them with force slow, and just like Lando in Battlefront 2, Cal targets all of them and takes them out one at a time with a sharp shot. It was awesome. It's clearly the flashiest of the 5 stances, and it's a crowd pleaser for sure. So why is EA being so quiet with it? Well, part of it comes down to just spoilers. It's not fun to show the fans everything in the trailers. Part of the experience is finding the ability on your own and seeing how it works in the middle of a playthrough. Another reason though, and I think this is the most important, is I believe the stance actually isn't finished yet. When I was watching the gameplay demo, it worked. The player was able to switch to the stance and use the blaster and the lightsaber in tandem, but it looked a little bit clunky. Pulling the trigger resulted in an animation that sort of rocked Cal's whole body and made it seem like he was stuck in place while he was shooting. It didn't look like a smooth transition between saber and blaster, even though that's the whole point of the stance. I know EA wants this game to be shown in the best possible light. They can't have another Battlefront 2 debacle, where it looks great in the trailers, but gets universally shunned on release. I think Survivor has already proven itself to be a top-class game though, even without blaster stance. Hopefully we get another surprise trailer that features some blaster gameplay, but if not, I will have a video on the channel talking about all the different combat possibilities. It'll go over Cal's moves, combos, stances, including blaster stance, and everything that you can do with them. So if you want to get the scoop on the best ways to play Jedi Survivor, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and getting notified. That's going to do it for today's video though. Thank you all so much for stopping by to check it out. Be sure to take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!